You've been looking to the cards to tell you what's coming. Maybe even looking for signs. But what if you've known what's coming this whole time? What if the cards or the signs don't hold the secret or even the answers? What if you just needed to trust what you're sensing? Allow this reading to confirm what you already know and trust yourself to move with it with confidence and agency. My readings tend to go where the inner work is required, which is not always comfortable, but always useful. So if you're ready to step into more agency, to notice or shift something in your life, welcome in. Let's spend a moment to settle in together. I ask my intuitive wise ones and your spirit guides to be present in the reading today, to illuminate the strongest messages for the highest good, allowing me to be a clear and neutral channel that is free from distortion, confusion, malice, and bias. If you're ready to choose your pile, timestamps are in the description. But for those who would like a close-up of the cards today, let me do that right now. For Soul Path 1, we have Here and Now with number 32. For Soul Path 2, we have Truth Be Told with number 14. And Soul Path 3, we have Deep Knowing with number 43. So when you're ready, click on the timestamp for your reading, and I'll see you over there. For those who chose Here and Now, number 32, welcome into your message. So with all of these cards, I find it very interesting that very similar color palettes are in each one, and almost a hint of similar messages of your deep inner knowing, but also what is here right now versus what's in the past, what's in the future. This is bringing your present back into this moment, into self. Not outsourcing any decisions, but believing what you know to be true in this current moment. So there could be some of you here that are waiting for somebody's potential to come to form, waiting for the potential of an opportunity to form. I feel like you're waiting for something here. And you're waiting for something to happen, waiting for something to come in, to open a door. And I almost wonder too, the red flag to me is really standing out. It says you are here. So two things are coming through with that. It's where you find your feet planted and gaining information from that point, from that location, but also overlooking the red flags. Not seeing the red flags because you're in that waiting period, waiting for something to happen. Yeah, and with this person sitting on top of the egg, it's like you're incubating something or waiting for something to change. So what you sense but you don't trust yet. We have the first card out, which is the Devil. What are you sensing? King of Cups in reverse. And the Three of Wands in the reverse here. The Three of Swords at the bottom of the deck. There's a difficult truth that you could be overlooking or avoiding or ignoring here. And that could be creating some attachment to something that feels emotionally unstable or unsteady. Now, this could be within you, but it also could be with a connection you have to an authority figure, father, a grandfather, a partner. And there's some dynamic here. There's some maladaptive coping mechanisms, there's an unhealthy attachment, there's some level of negativity or toxicity in the situation. And I feel that you are waiting for something to get better with this Three of Wands in reverse. But I also feel like you have put your dreams on pause. You have maybe stopped looking into the future because you're not really sure where this is going, where it's leading you. And so there's a frustration here of, when is this going to change? When is it going to get better? And I think you are trying to prevent something pretty heartbreaking from occurring. You don't want to break your heart. You don't want to break someone else's heart by making some kind of choice. So, what are you engaged with, involved in, that feels negative, toxic, unhealthy, that makes you feel emotionally dysregulated, that maybe makes you feel like you have to carry emotional responsibility for other people, and a situation that feels a little repressive, like you can't grow in the ways that you want, that you can't move in the world in the way that you want. That is where the inner knowing has all of the answers. That is the focus of what you see, but you don't trust yet. So I want to know why you don't trust this. Page of Cups in reverse. There could be children involved. But there also could be a wounded inner child here, an inner child that is trying to feel safe. We have the Five of Cups in reverse here. Yeah, there are definitely a lot of emotions involved here. You don't trust this yet because I feel like it's a feeling that you haven't tapped into yet or don't want to tap into. I feel you want to remain optimistic in this, and that could be part of why things aren't changing, but also why you don't trust this inner knowing yet is that there's so much hope and so much optimism, so much determination to carry this forward, to make it happen. And also because you don't want to feel the pain. We have somewhat of a heartbreak energy coming back, but this is the felt pain of what cannot be put back together again. So there is definitely a resistance of feeling something here, but also not wanting to feel vulnerable. There's an inner child that wants to stay safe here. And wanting to avoid maybe a big upheaval because of this attachment, whatever this attachment is. So the trust is rooted in the feelings of what you might be avoiding, what you might be fearing. So what's possible when you trust this sense, when you trust your inner knowing? What's possible when you trust? Seven of Pentacles in reverse. This is almost like an admission of what's not working. This is not just standing back and kind of looking at things, waiting for things, taking your time with things, being patient with things. This is getting to a point of impatience and really understanding what needs to be pruned out here so that you can have the most bountiful harvest. Because to me, the Seven of Pentacles is giving me this feeling of you might not be able to have it all in this particular situation. And I feel this is not something new that I'm saying here. The Queen of Wands in reverse. This is a disempowering kind of energy when she is in the reversal here. It can also be a very reactive energy as well. A little impulsive. I wouldn't say controlling in the negative aspect of things. I would say trying to control outcomes, trying to control other people, the way other people react. So it's almost in that protective, defensive way. But I feel there's a lot of energy being externally applied. And it's becoming frustrating for you because you already know what needs to be pruned away. You already know what's not working. And you already know what's been tried and done before and hasn't worked. So what is next? What is that next decision, that next step that puts you closer to your goals? And I'm not going to ask the cards that because I feel that is going to be up to each and every one of you to discern what that is. You most likely know what the correct answers are. You just have to start trusting that knowing a little bit more. So I'm going to close the reading now, my dear Soul Path 1. I'd love to know what meaningful message you are taking away today. And if you're sensing there's a little more to unpack here, there's a link in the description to join my private collective and gain access to my booking calendar. Thanks for stopping by, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. For those who chose Truth Be Told number 14, welcome in. So as I mentioned in Soul Path 1, all of the cards have similar coloring to them. There's a lot of repeating themes here as well. The hearts, the owls, this sense of knowing and presence. But with this one, it feels like either opening your heart to the truth, seeing beyond the mask that is being presented to you, or maybe the mask that you are wearing for one reason or another, and opening yourself up to some kind of new experience, feeling, perception, and maybe even opening up to the wisdom that is already within you, because that might create a sense of freedom for you. So let's look at what you sense but don't trust yet. What you sense but don't trust yet for Soul Path 2, Spirit. The Magician. The Six of Swords. And the Five of Wands in reverse here. With the World in reverse. You're sensing the closure of something. You're sensing that something is ending, maybe multiple things or one really big thing. There's a close of a chapter here and an opening up of a new one. A new one that is rooted in creation, that's rooted in the things that you want to bring to life, but can't quite see yet. So you could be in an interesting liminal space right now. And the liminal space is that in-between space of the things that are falling away and the things that haven't quite yet become. So you kind of have one foot in and one foot out. So I'm getting both things are happening at once. There's a closure and there's a closing and an opening happening at once. Now, the World at the bottom of the deck is in reverse, so it means that there's something that needs to be tied up, closed up, detached from. so that you can open yourself up to new things here. Now, with the Six of Swords, this is giving me this sense of moving on from something that isn't conducive to your future growth. And I'm getting very similar colorings here of what this person is moving towards once they hop into the boat. And this here, where it's this openness, this freedom. It definitely feels like you're moving away from something that might be feeling heavy and moving into something that feels lighter, brighter, more optimistic, more hopeful. But I also feel like this is a choice. You have to get into the boat. You have to choose to get into the boat. But I feel with this Five of Wands in reverse, it's like you don't want to do battle anymore. You don't want to fight for something here. You want to take yourself out of the running. I almost wonder too if there's like a competition of priorities here, like either there's competing priorities or that you have to compete for someone's attention. So you're not being prioritized in some way. You're being overlooked in some way. I want to know what this Magician is. I didn't do clarifiers in Soul Path 1, but I'm really curious to get more information on this one. Six of Cups. What is this Five of Wands in reverse? Four of Cups. So there's some emotions involved. Something from the past. And something that feels a little lackluster here. So maybe you are moving on from a past, it could be a past identity. Something that you used to do as a child or you used to identify with as a child no longer feels like it's resonating. And you want to enter a space that feels a little more free to be yourself, to feel a little more optimistic about things, to feel like you don't have to fight against the flow of things. Why you don't trust this? Why you don't trust this? The Moon. Because it's unknown. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of mystery. The Devil came out in Soul Path 1 too. Ace of Wands. You're at the starting point of something new here. And you don't trust that because you don't trust what you're sensing because you don't see it yet. And that's exactly what I'm getting for you, Soul Path 2, is that you're in a liminal space. You're in between versions of yourself, in between versions of life. And there's so many things that feel a little scary here. The Devil in itself can be about our shadow, can be about the things that we fear. And then we have the Moon, which is those subconscious fears, those conditioned beliefs that keep us stuck. So you're not just up against the things that are happening or not happening in the external around you. I feel like this is a lot of internal things shifting, which is changing the external. It's changing your relationship to the past. It's changing your relationship to what it is that you want. And with that comes some pretty big bosses that you have to confront. Confronting the unknown, confronting who you were and who you want to become, confronting the fears that come along with that, challenging the beliefs that you've carried since childhood, creating new from this space. And with the Ace of Wands at the bottom of the deck here, this is like the seed of potential. This is the determination and the fire, the spark that starts it all. So you can't really see, you just have a feeling and an inspiration about something here. But you can't actually see what it looks like yet because the seed has just been planted. So moving through this, I feel part of it is going to be about creating the capacity to hold discomfort. And I've done this before for a very long time. I went through a very long 2 to 3 year period, maybe even longer, of releasing and shedding an old identity, an old life. It was really, really tough. I wanted to know the answers. I wanted to see where I was going. But I had to get really familiar with my fears, with the conditioned beliefs that I was carrying that were no longer serving my growth and whatever wanted to become next. There was a lot of surrendering to the process. And surrendering just means letting go of what I thought was possible, letting go of the outcomes and the results, and simply focusing on the process of what I needed to do to move myself through that space, and working on myself internally, working with the mind, working with what's happening in the body, in the nervous system, and doing my best day by day to expand through that experience. So this is what is possible when you trust. The Nine of Swords in reverse. You don't have as much worry. Not to say that worry will completely go away, but the worries won't drive the bus anymore. The worries will be something that helps guide you, not prevents you, blocks you, stops you, overwhelms you. So when you trust this process, when you trust yourself in this process, you're going to understand your fears, your anxieties, your worries on a deeper level. And they become companions on this journey. They stabilize somehow. You are able to move through this experience in a very authentic way. You're not going to bypass, you're not going to overlook, you're not going to repress. You are going to not metaphorically hide behind a mask saying everything's fine. You're going to really be truthful in that process and honor this process, which will ease the anxiety and worries because you have a deeper sense of self-trust that you will get through this because you understand yourself on a deeper level. You understand the journey, the path that you're on, and ultimately why you're here to begin with. There was a reason why you're in this liminal space. Something needed to shift, change, grow, expand. And the Knight of Pentacles in reverse at the bottom of the deck just tells me that feels like a redirection, but also a reconnection to what you deem to be most important to you. This is reconnecting to your core values, understanding how you move with those core values, and is your actions aligned with those core values. I feel like this is a slow process. It's not something that will ease up quickly because there's so many layers to it. And this is something that you don't want to rush because it is potent and powerful and empowering. So take your time through this. Get to know yourself a little bit better through this space. And I feel on the other side of this, you're going to see things, perceive things, think about things very differently. So I'm going to close the reading, my dear soul path 2. I'd love to know what meaningful message you are taking away today. And if you're sensing there's a little more to unpack, there's a link in the description to join my private collective and gain access to my booking calendar. Thanks for stopping by today. I hope to see you soon. For those who chose Deep Knowing, number 43, welcome into your message. The leader cards are all similar colors and very similar energies tonight. So I feel like this is a very appropriate reading for the collective. And there's an owl here. There's moons. There is a connection, quite literal connection to your deep knowing, your inner wisdom. Having that be your foundation to help you grow in new ways, to help you see things differently, see things from a higher perspective. So I'm curious, what do you sense but don't trust yet? The Soul Path 3 sense. Okay. All right. So we have the Five of Wands, the Queen of Swords in reverse, and the Nine of Pentacles in reverse, with the Seven of Wands at the bottom of the deck. I feel like you've had to constantly defend yourself here. You've had to consistently prove your worth to someone, maybe even to yourself, because there is someone in your life or even an internal critic. And that has really diminished your sense of self-worth, how you see yourself, how you value yourself. And there is this fight to prove. There's this competitiveness, competition, maybe competing priorities. But also there's a lot of noise here. So this could be external noise. This could be the inner critic noise. It could be the criticism from other people. It feels very exhausting, Soul Path 3. So I feel part of this knowing is, first of all, getting to know the inner critic. And on my Patreon channel, I believe in the month of May, we talked about that. Or was it April? We talked about getting to know the inner critic, and there's a guided audio to get to know the inner critic. And there's some questions there. You know, what is this inner critic saying? Whose voice is that inner critic? Is it yours or someone else's? That might be enough to really highlight what's happening here. If you feel this need to continue to prove yourself, to push, to perform, to fight for something, it might not be about proving yourself or fighting for something, for somebody's approval. It might be about how you are seeing yourself, how you value yourself. And by changing that, it might change everything else. So, what you don't trust. Or pardon me, why you don't trust, not what you don't trust. Okay. There's a lot of discomfort here. There could also be some financial discomfort. This could have something to do with how you earn money. You could be in a competitive field. You could be an athlete. And the reason why you don't trust it, you might know it, but you might not really trust it because there is some potential downfalls in trusting it. And trusting it, it means you have to do something about that. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But there is a sense that if I don't do something, and that might be something to explore, what happens if you don't do something? What is at risk if you do something? What is at risk if you don't do something? But I feel there's a lot of discomfort here, and you don't trust it because maybe you're hoping for you to gain some enlightenment or you to improve in some form or fashion here. Maybe there is a sense of freedom that you gain from being in this dynamic. It's like by doing this, you're able to free yourself from a limiting belief. Or maybe there's an avoidance to looking at that limiting belief. But yeah, there could be some financial consequence. There could just be an overall discomfort from confronting this or dealing with it or looking at it. But I also think through that space, there's a lot to gain. It could free you from some really awful situation. Even some cycles of thinking, some negative thought patterns. And can even provide a sense of enlightenment here. So on one hand, it might feel uncomfortable, but on the other hand, it might feel correct. It might feel like in the space of discomfort, you're learning a lot about yourself and how to manage that discomfort, how to manage conflict, how to manage the limiting beliefs that are coming up for yourself, and not leaning on any external measure for success, achievement, permission. But I don't think it's easy. But I do think there's an element of waiting of I need to get back on my feet, or I need some kind of circumstance to change in order for me to feel empowered. There's some storyline there. It almost feels like you're a little, I don't want to say trapped, because I'd like to think that there's choices. But yeah, explore that. What are your choices right now? So what's possible when you do trust? Well, there's your decision. There's your decision, and it's not a comfortable one, I'll have to say that, but it's still being made and there's a redirection. With this Eight of Wands in reverse, there's like, nope, I'm not pushing forward anymore. Nope, I'm not going in that direction anymore. There's definitely a stopping point, whatever that is. And a decision that is made in the face of discomfort, in the face of not knowing, in the face of, I don't know if this is correct, but I have to go with valuing myself, protecting my health, protecting what I feel is valuable, and not listening to some external noise to prove who I am and what I can achieve and what I can do. So this feels like you have really faced this tension and maybe have felt this pressure for a really long time to do something about it, but there's no logical path forward other than the one that feels really uncomfortable. I want to know more. What's possible when you trust outside of this choice? What else? There's some frustration at first, but I also feel like you get really familiar with what you actually want. You get really connected to what you actually want, and the Hierophant at the bottom there. So this decision definitely pulls you back, and it allows you to get a sense for your direction of where you're going, of where you're headed. So that redirection with that Eight of Wands in reverse that we saw earlier is coming back to You know, where am I going? What am I doing? What do I want to do? What do I deem to be successful for me? And when I look at what I'm doing in the world, maybe how I'm taking action, or whether or not I'm aligned with my values and my self-worth, what is actually working and what's not. So there's a mulling over of things here, which I feel is a good thing. Because the Hierophant and the Tower underneath that, it creates some pretty big shifts in your life when you trust what you know and maybe you act upon it. You connect with the more spiritual side, maybe of yourself or life. You learn a lot in that process. And you really kind of dismantle some foundations that never really felt like yours to begin with. So, valuing yourself in a way that might disconnect you from this dynamic, yes, it might feel uncomfortable, but essentially it recalibrates you to what is true for you. So it's a pretty big deal. So I just want to know that this shouldn't be taken lightly, whatever this is. I feel like it could potentially change your whole life. At first, in a very uncomfortable way, maybe for a very long time. But again, at what cost, right? That's what you have to weigh and balance. But I do see the Queen of Cups underneath that. So that is a very empowering energy. That is kind of knowing how I feel, honoring how I feel, and taking care of myself in that process. So I'm going to close the reading now, my dear Soul Path 3. I'd love to know what meaningful message you're taking away today. And if you're sensing there's a little more to unpack, there's a link in the description to join my private collective and gain access to my booking calendar. Thanks for stopping by today, and I'll see you soon.